Well, welcome all you folks. We're delighted to have you with us today. This is Saturday morning, the 13th of July of 2024. I'm Don Snow. I'm one of the vice presidents of the Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group, UVTAG for short. And our host today is Gerhard Roof. He's our president as well as the host today. Also online with us is Dallan Quass, who's going to be our speaker today for our first hour. And we have other people online as well. This is we're in our 34th year, I think it is, of the Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group. We used to be called the Utah Valley PAF user group, Personal Ancestral File, in the early days. But we changed the name 15 or 20 years ago when we developed so many other things. We publish a monthly newsletter and have all kinds of activities of different classes and so on. And if you're interested, we have a website, uvtag.org, and you can click on that, and there's a place if you want to get a sample copy of our newsletter, which is really wonderful. It's up to sometimes 30 pages of good information. You can request a sample copy of it. We do lots of different outreach sorts of things of teaching classes and other things. And we've got lots of members from different places around the world. Let's see, I think that's enough of a commercial. I've asked Rayanne Milik, she's our financial officer, if she would offer an invocation for us, and then I'll introduce our speaker. Rayanne?
Okay. Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be able to meet together as this group this morning. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to have our speaker, Dallan Quass, to enlighten us with things about family history and technology that can help us in our work as we further it here upon the earth. We're grateful for the technology that has been developed over the years, and we're grateful for the many records that have come forth lately and all of those things that have been uncovered and recovered over and recorded over the years that we can link with our ancestors here on the earth. We're grateful for the many blessings that we enjoy. We're grateful for the beautiful weather this day, and we're grateful for the opportunity of the technology that links us in this meeting around the world. We pray now that we might enjoy this meeting, and we especially pray that Dallan will be able to share what he has prepared for us, and that we might enjoy and be able to learn much from this meeting. Again, we're grateful for all that we've been blessed with, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. She mentioned the weather. It's hot here in Utah. I don't know about other places around the country, but it's really been hot. Been setting records in the last little while. Let me introduce our speaker, Dallan Quass. Dallan is a wonderful guy. He got his bachelor's and master's degrees here at BYU, Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. And he may have even forgotten it because he's done so many things since then, but he wrote a program called ECR, Electronic Class Roll, that most of us used at the university to keep track of all our grades for our students with homework and tests, and it had all kinds of fancy things that you could drop out the lowest score or you could weight the things there. It was a wonderful program, and it really helped us a lot, Dallan. We appreciate that greatly. He, after getting his master's degree in computer science at BYU, bachelor's and master's, he went to Stanford and got a PhD in computer science. And from there, he formed several different companies. The details are on our blog. If you look at our uvtag.blog, you'll find the details of the different companies he's formed. And they've been sold to big name people like Amazon and other places. And he retired at about age 40, I think it was, Dallan, so he could do family history stuff. I think it's wonderful. And he's still teaching and still doing new things. He's got several websites. We Relate is one of his websites. The Go what is it? Go Gophers? Is that it? The one about the books on from Family Search, and dozen things that he's done, and we appreciate it. He's also working with BYU Idaho in what he called let's see, it was it's with their Pathways program, but he's not teaching. He's doing a gathering group for them. And he just told us a few minutes ago that he's been called as him and his wife Sylvang have been called as full-time missionaries to go to the Philippines in January to teach over there and work with the people there. Major background, major background. He's going to talk to us today about the ways that you can summarize using AI, artificial intelligence, to summarize and extract the data from genealogical documents that are handwritten. Now, this is major for so many of us to be helpful. I've got letters and everything else, collections that I need to scan. So we're looking really forward to it. Dallan, we'll turn the time over to you. And he'll be talking to us now until about 11 a.m. And then for those of you who are still with us after that, we got another program, another class after that on questions and discussions, open discussion, but that's separate. So right now, Dallan, the time is yours.
Thank you, Don, and thanks UV Tag for letting me present today. I appreciate that. This is something that is kind of near and dear to my heart, combining AI and genealogy together, two big interests of mine. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, there we go. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. AI, as you probably know, has kind of taken over the news a lot lately, good and bad. But for genealogy, it's generally good. So let's talk about that. The current trend in AI is driven by something called large language models. And these are AI models that take some kind of a prompt and then output something. I know that's really general, but it's just a general input-output machine. The prompt can be text or images, or maybe even audio, or both. The actual wording of the prompt, it turns out, can have a significant impact on the quality of the output. The output could also be an image or text, even video now. There are a couple of models that are still kind of in the early stages, but are generating some pretty amazing video clips just from text. They look pretty realistic. Okay, so the wording has a significant impact on the quality of the output. And so when you use a large language model, you tend to iteratively try to improve your prompt until it gives you the output that you're looking for. And this process of iteratively improving your prompt is called prompt engineering. There are a number of prompt engineering techniques that have been, quote unquote, discovered over the last couple of years by people who have sat down and tried this and tried that, and then they try something and they say, wow, that seems to work well in a lot of cases. And then they, believe it or not, they'll write a paper on it, and that paper will get published. So it doesn't seem to be too difficult to write a paper in AI anymore, at least in prompt engineering. There are a couple of websites if you're interested in kind of prompt engineering techniques. There's the promptingguide.ai and learnprompting.org that explain these techniques. I won't go into them today, but we will use a couple of them, and I'll mention that. Okay. So how do large language models work? They are trained by reading terabytes, literally terabytes of text from the web, from books, anything that people can get their hands on. And one of the real breakthroughs on this is normally when you have a machine learning system, you have to have a set of inputs and then the desired output. And you hire people to come up with the desired outputs. So for example, in a genealogy system, you might have when you're training a genealogy system, you might have information about a person in a tree, and then information about a record in a tree, and you have somebody say, does this record belong to that person in the tree or does it not? And you have to have tens of thousands of these records hand labeled in order to develop your classifier that can predict whether a record should be shown as a hint for somebody or not. And the interesting thing with large language models, and the thing that kind of took this over the edge, was somebody had the idea, all we need to do is remove, say, 15% of the words in these documents. And then that 15% of the words that got removed, that's what we'll try to predict. We'll try to have the document predict that missing word. And suddenly they were able to develop these models that when you give it a sequence of words, it's able to predict the next word. And it turns out that simple approach, when you combine it with terabytes of data, does a pretty good job at predicting the next word. In addition, they also it's called instruction tuning. They also fine tune these models to say, well, you should also try to follow instructions. So the early large language models, if you gave it a sequence of words, what is the capital of Paris? It would come back with, what is the capital of Germany? Because it would see a lot of pages of questions like this. What is the capital of France? It would come back with, what is the capital of Germany? Because it would see a lot of web pages that would just have lists of questions like that. And so what is the capital of Germany was the next most likely sequence of words. And then after doing instruction tuning, then these large language models were able to output Paris instead of, what is the capital of Germany? It costs a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars to train one of these large language models. So there aren't very many out there. Then there's a new thing has happened just recently. They're called multi-modal. The early large language models just took text and output text. And now these new models can take in text and images, and they can output text and images. And it turns out that they are surprisingly good, even though they haven't been specially trained to read handwriting. They're surprisingly good at that. Although with some significant caveats that I'll talk about today. So the three leading multimodal large language models are GPT-4o by OpenAI, Gemini by Google, and Claude by Anthropic. So we'll talk about each one of those. So this is the first example, using LLMs to transcribe handwritten documents. I'm pretty sure now this is at court held for Louisa County, the 26th day of October, 17, I think that's October, I'm not sure actually, 1764, the last will and testament of so-and-so. Okay, so we're going to ask these large language models to read this. And this is me and my wife. We tried to transcribe this document ourselves. I'm pretty sure that this first word really should be at instead of ma, or at actually instead of ma. But so we got that. I'm pretty sure we got that part wrong. But the rest of this, I feel pretty comfortable that we got it right after spending a fair amount of time trying to read that handwriting. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure is error here. EAOR really is error. Okay, so let's see, first of all, let's compare these transcriptions. So we're going to compare our transcription against a transcription created by someone who's inexperienced, someone who you could hire on Fiverr or Upwork for very little money to transcribe your documents. And Levenstein is just a measure of differences in characters. So there were 56 character differences between our transcription and this person that we hired their transcription. And so generally pretty good. Okay, now let's compare GPT-4o. So 118 character differences. Unfortunately, some of those character differences are kind of important. It said Lunin count. So the red is ours, the green is specific to GPT-4o. When it's not in colored, that means that both models got it the same. And so, yeah, so it was Lunin. The GPT-4o thought it was 1761. They thought it was James Hunter instead of Jane, and so on. You can see here that the pro and the con of a large language model is that not only does it look at the image when it's trying to recognize the handwriting, but it also has a language model behind it. So it knows what kind of language tends to be in an 18th century will. And so because of that, sometimes it will just make stuff up. The document says this executrix and heir, and GPT-4 said the said executors who have together with. Well, said executors who have together with, that sounds good, but that did not come from the image at all. As the law directs is what the document said, who have entered into bond. Also sounds great, but again, unfortunately, not what was actually on the document. So pro and con, it can use that language model to better identify the handwriting, but sometimes it just kind of goes off on its own. And so to try to keep that from happening, the next thing I did is I modified the prompt. Okay, write exactly what you see. Don't make up words. Okay,
Dallan,
yes.
Dallan, was that, did you just feed in a PDF for that, or did you have to convert the PDF to something else first? What did you feed in?
I just fed in an image, just a
Just
JPEG.
the image of the PDF of the handwriting.
Yeah, I went to Family Search. I'd found an image, I downloaded it, and then uploaded it directly to the large language model. Didn't do any kind of pre-processing on the image at all.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, and thanks for that question. And I should say, if anyone has questions during this, just please ask them. Don't wait till the end. Okay, so you can see it did better. It didn't make up as many words as it did before. We went from 118 down to 98, so 20 more correct characters, about a 20%-ish improvement. So not too bad. Then one of the tricks that people, so this is a trick that people have found. If you give the large language model a longer prompt with more specific direction, it tends to work a little bit better. Another thing that you can have a large language model do is you can have it review its work. And sometimes that also helps. You can say, please review your transcription and write a new transcription with the mistakes corrected. The problem that large language models have is they spit out one word at a time. And so when they get to that 29th word, it's too late for them to go back and change the second word, even though maybe they realized by this time that the second word was actually should have been something else to make the whole sequence more probable. And so once you can if you can turn around then after the large language model has given its output, and then ask it to review the entire output now and then correct its mistakes, a lot of times that helps the large language model to do better. In this case, it did not, but in general, it's a good idea. So now let's take a look at Gemini. This is from Google, and Gemini is kind of has a reputation for not being as good as the other models that are out there. Google's working on trying to make their models better, but yeah, they're still working on it. And that kind of shows up here, 161 instead of 128. A lot more mistakes here. Yeah. So ask Gemini, hey, exactly what you see, don't make up words. That didn't help for Gemini. And that's another one of the lessons to learn is each model has its own kind of quirks, and what the types of prompts that work well for one model aren't guaranteed to work well for another model. So you need to do the prompt engineering for each model that you want to try separately. I mean, there are some things that tend to work well across models, but in this case, in this example, yeah, the actual adding additional words to make my request more specific did not help. And then review your transcription also didn't help Gemini. So there you go. Then I tried Claude from Anthropic, which is, I think, a model that doesn't get enough appreciation because it's amazing. 45. It's about the same as our human transcription person here. Still, some of these 4 to 7 got that wrong, unfortunate. And then Powell, Poindexter, not so good. And instead of William, it was Mr. But in general, I'm very impressed with this. Let's go with the next one. Don't make up words. That didn't help. Now it's Powell to Pettit. And yeah, instead of Johnson, now it's Jefferson. But still not too bad. When I asked it to review its transcription, it came back and said, after careful review, I think I'm right. And I think, yeah, it did a pretty good job. So that's Claude. Of the 3 models, OpenAI's GPT-4o and Gemini and Claude, for me, Claude wins hands down. So let's give Claude a harder problem here. So this is another will by Andrew Hunter. This one, my wife and I spent a long time trying to figure out the wording on this to get it right. We think we did okay. This is what we have here. Andrew Hunter will, Louisa County, Virginia, 1764, names a number of his children, Peter, and talks about a land description that he's given to Peter. Then he gives the rest of his kids almost nothing. He gives his daughter Mary a shilling, and his son Andrew a shilling, and William a shilling, and Stephen a shilling, Jane a shilling. Yeah, so that's, here we go. Let's see how we do. So this is again, we had that same person transcribe this will, and inexperienced and more differences, which is expected. This was a really, really hard document to read. So we had 260 differences. Now we gave it to GPT-4o. It starts making up stuff left and right, which is, unfortunate. But, it talks about Mary in there, and Andrew and all sorts of stuff. Okay. Gemini, not as bad as GPT-4, but still, yeah, a lot of stuff. And the thing is with Gemini, I mean, look at some of these words here. These aren't even words. Not sure what's going on there, but yeah, just okay. That was weird. And then Claude, 460. So not too bad. It did have some problems down here in kind of the last paragraph, which is where Solveig and I spent a lot of time, especially looking at, but tends to get most everything right. And so then we, yeah, so we can zoom in here to all his mother's departed and all the remains of my movable estate. So here it's still falling back on its language model to try to guess what these words are based upon words that it's seen in other wills before. Okay. So when we ask it to not make up words, it does a little bit better. It was at, remember, 460. Now it's at 429. And then finally, we ask it to review its transcription. And here it's decided, oh, I did make some mistakes. And it comes way down to 387. Oops, let's go back here. So let's just look at these kinds of mistakes that it made. Now these red lines at the, okay, so first of all, every model instead of got VA wrong, interpreting it instead as 24. What's interesting is that later you'll see that even though the model did not know that this document was in Louisa County, Virginia, when I ask it to give me the places found in the documents, it knows, because of its world knowledge from reading all of this text, that Louisa County is in Virginia, which I think is pretty cool. So even though it transcribed it wrong, it was able to eventually at least extract the right information. Okay, so these red lines, these are just new lines that the model put in. They're not really real mistakes. So this first paragraph, I think, is pretty good, with one significant exception. And that is, this should have been Peter. The model thought it was Philip. I don't know why, but it did. Otherwise, it looks pretty good to me. The next paragraph, this was a lot harder to read. But
Hi, Dallan,
yeah.
can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Sorry, we just have a few questions from Facebook.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Would you like me to ask you now?
Yes, please.
Okay. One was, how do you generate that Levenstein value? Sorry, it was a few minutes ago.
Yeah. So I'll actually put a link at the end of the presentation to a really nice website that I found where you can put in one transcription on the left-hand side, and then you put another transcription on the right-hand side, and then you hit compare, and it generates the Levenstein number and also gives you this really nice display with the red and the green.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay, oh, go ahead. We have another question. Are you
Yes, yeah.
How recently were those transcriptions done by the LLMs?
Yesterday.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, two more questions. To clarify, it says, to clarify, I understand the concept of measuring errors in the transcription, but does the user have to go through manually and compare each transcription to the one done by the experienced human? I guess you just asked that. Is that answer that?
Yeah, you don't have to do it manually. If you have one that's done by an experienced human, you can just upload both transcriptions into this website and it will do the comparison for you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, one last question. How much actual time do you think you worked on these transcriptions in a day versus the AI models?
Yeah, we spent so here's what we did. We hired one of our BYU pathway students in Africa and said, hey, here's some images. Please transcribe these images. And she spent because this is new to her, she spent about and we actually had her transcribe 5 images, and a couple of them were quite long. And in the end, I decided, well, let's just focus on these 2 instead for the presentation. She probably spent about an hour doing each of these 2 images. And then we took her transcription, and that first one, we maybe spent 20 minutes, 30 minutes going over. So we started with hers transcription, and we kind of carefully went through it, and we said, oh no, it looks like she made a mistake here, and this is wrong. And so we corrected. So we started with hers as a baseline, and we fixed up the mistakes that we thought that she'd made. Again, I thought she did a fantastic job, especially for someone that isn't used to reading 18th century wills ever.
Right.
Anything really from from the United States. But and then that second one, this longer one that we're looking at now, my goodness, we probably spent an hour on it. So yeah, it took a long time.
And
Yeah,
the AI takes just a couple, like a minute, or how does
a few seconds. Yeah,
a few seconds? Awesome.
yeah.
Okay, that's all of the questions from us. I'll let you know if we have more from Facebook.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure, yeah. And yeah, so AI takes a few seconds. I went ahead and spent each one of these OpenAI and Google and Anthropic, Claude. They each have a free tier, so you can just use it without paying them any money. But the free tiers are somewhat limited. You can only submit so many requests a day or an hour. And so I went ahead for this presentation because I knew I'd be wanting to do a lot of requests, and just spent the $20 on each one of them to sign up for a month. And then it was fine. I think that's a fantastic value. Most of these large companies right now, everybody's trying to get in and grab market share on AI, and so they're running those servers either at cost or at a loss. They're being funded by VC capitalists right now, so venture capitalists. So it's a good time to be experimenting with AI. I imagine eventually, well, eventually the server costs will go down and those companies will start making money. But right now you can do this for not a lot of investment. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, the 18th century, it says DAFS. It looks like it has that that long S that looks like an F. So we said DASS, and then it has an ER, and the large language model says, well, I know what that is. That's daughter. And so it actually just wrote out daughter. Whether that's a mistake or not, I don't know. It kept on thinking that departed was Deborah, and that'll come up again a little bit later. I looked and looked and looked at that word. I don't think it's Deborah. It might not be departed, but it's definitely not Deborah. Okay. So let's see. And then this is MCH, and then there's a little L, at least a little squiggle. I think that in the document, this should be Michael. So we wrote down MCH Johnson and then Andrew Hunter. Andrew Hunter was kind of over on one side. So it put the Andrew Hunter first and then wrote Nath Johnson. And again, we've looked at this a number of times, and I think MCH is right. Nath is not right. And then it got, instead of Samuel J. Powell, it got Samuel Davis. That's definitely not right. So it did pretty good, but it did also make some key mistakes. And that's going to be one of the lessons learned here at the end. So we have a transcription that at least is as good as I think it's going to get. Let's just say it that way. So what can we do now that we have this transcription? Well, we can do some pretty cool things. We can extract names and dates and places, relationships. We can summarize it. We can translate it. We can ask questions about it. So let's try that. Okay, so here I just put in the prompt. Please identify all of the names, dates, places, and relationships in the transcription. And so it got everything right, except for just a couple of things. It thought that the son was Robert instead of Peter. It thought that this was Nath Johnson Witness instead of Michael or MCH. And then it thought that it was Samuel Purcell instead of Samuel Powell. This is a little odd to me because if you remember, in the transcription, it said Samuel Davis. So I'm not sure where Purcell actually came from. But there you go. Most of the time it got it right. It thought it was October 19th instead of October 26th. But it did get the parish, the county, everything else looks pretty good. Okay. There are a number of other relationships here that it extracted, but I didn't have room enough on the slide for them. Okay, let's go on. Okay, here are some of the mistakes. I really do think that this is Peter, and it thought it extracted it as Robert. I'm pretty sure, I think that this is the 26th, and it thought it was the 19th. There's that MCH with the thing that looks like it's probably an L. It thought it was Nath. I get that, but there's no T, and he's pretty good about crossing his T's. And then there's the thing it thought was Purcell, but I really think that's Powell. So you can kind of see the kinds of mistakes that it's making, and yeah, not awful. Like I say, it gets most everything else right.
Hi, Dallan, one more question, a couple from Facebook.
Yep.
Did Claude generate that table with the data?
Yes, it did. Yeah, I really did ask it, please identify all the names, dates, places, and relationships. It didn't put it in a table. It just put it in one long sequence. It had names as the header, and then it had all of those things as all of the numbered items underneath it. And then instead of a different column in the table, it just had a new header, dates, and then a new header, places, new header, relationships, a new header, additional notes. And so I put it in the 4 columns here just so that I could get everything on one slide. But it had all of the headers and all of the numbered items, just perfect. I did not change anything else except for bolding some things.
Okay, great. So it didn't do the paragraph. It just did it didn't do a table, but a big long list.
Yeah,
Is that
okay? Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yep. And so then I said, well, what about GEDCOM? So same thing, write them in GEDCOM format. And I was impressed. It did a few things wrong. The date of the death. So it inferred the death date, but it said before 19th of October, 1764. Well, no, because this will was dated 19th of October, 1764. So he couldn't have died before the will. That should have been after. But it did get the right and date right. Well, and again, it's not the 19th, it's the 26th. Here, this is where I'm saying it was able to infer that Louisa County is in Virginia. The rest of this stuff, it also was able to infer the gender, the sex for the children, and it, got it right. So pretty happy with this overall. Okay, Dabney's Line, Red Bank branch. So not too shabby for it. Interesting, isn't it, that it understands the GEDCOM format, and it, you know, GEDCOM is not that popular of a format out there, and yet it knew enough, it had read enough GEDCOMs on the internet to be able to output this data in a GEDCOM format. Okay.
Hey, Dallan, one other question. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you had prompted it to have it put in a table, would it have done that, do you think?
It does know about tables, so it might have done that. Generally, when you ask it to put it in a table, it will either put it in an HTML. Especially if you say, you know, put it in an HTML table, it'll put it in a table with all of the table and TD and TR HTML tags. Or it also understands this thing called Markdown, which is like a human readable HTML-ish format. And so you can also say, put it in a markdown table, and it knows about that. Yeah.
Oh, great.
And it's really, really good at JSON, which is it's more of a programmer oriented data structure. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thanks so much for answering these. It's great.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Dallan, did you try taking this GEDCOM and putting it into a program to see what it would look like?
No, I didn't. And okay, in looking at this, what's the problem? The problem is it didn't put in the header and the footer. And I don't know how well a program would read something without a header and a footer on there. I probably could have said, hey, that's great, but you're missing the header and the footer. Please rewrite this with the GEDCOM header and footer, or trailer, not footer, trailer.
Yeah.
And it probably would have been able to do that.
It'd be interesting to see whether it really did put all the stuff in the right place and see what it looked like.
Yeah, but
That
I
is
mean,
wonderful. I didn't realize it would do all this stuff.
Yeah,
Especially GEDCOM.
Yeah, exactly. And I've read enough GEDCOM that with the header and the trailer, I'm pretty confident this would be just fine. So yeah,
Okay. Oh, a couple more questions. So one, would it have made a GEDCOM diagram? I'm not sure what, is that the same question maybe?
GEDCOM diagram.
I'm not sure what.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if they could explain.
Okay, I'll tell them to explain that. And then one other person, Bob Davis, said, I want to transcribe daily letters from my mom to dad during World War II. Did you do any examples of free text rather than just specific types of document?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a good thing to try.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, and I'd encourage you. I mean, you could just get a free account on Claude and give it a shot right now and see how it does. Especially if the handwriting is good, I think it should do okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on. It did give me this disclaimer at the bottom of that list.
Sorry about the GEDCOM diagram. Make a family tree diagram from this information.
Oh, yeah. I know that at least Claude right now does not support outputting images. You can feed in images, but currently it won't generate images. You could, if you really, if you wanted to, you could go to OpenAI and or one of the other image generation models and give it this information. It would probably, I bet, that would be an interesting experiment to try giving some of these models, some of these image generation models, a GEDCOM file, and see if it could generate a family tree from them. I haven't tried that. I'll write that down though. That's an interesting idea.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, but a caveat here. One thing that most image generation models are currently really, really bad at is text. For whatever reason, that's still kind of a work in progress. They're bad at two things. They're bad at getting people's fingers right. And they're really, really bad at if you say, hey, I want you to create an image with like a billboard in it that has this text on it. It'll create the image, it'll create the billboard, and then the text will kind of be, kind of garbledy. So thinking about that, I'm less confident that having it generate a family tree diagram would work. Just because, there's so much text in a family tree diagram.
I wonder if it would generate an ontological table, because that would be numbered.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That's probably a much more viable.
Yeah, because that's all text.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Yeah, so here it just says, hey, I had to infer some information here, such as the sex of the individuals. The wife's name isn't provided, so she's listed as Mrs. Hunter. That's good. So there you go. So it did good on the extraction. I'm happy. Summarize. I said, please summarize this document. And then it gave me this nice summary. And I thought, oh, that's kind of a long summary. And a lot of it is about what he bequeathed everybody, which I'm not maybe quite so interested in. So then I added information. And I said, be sure to include, give a 1-paragraph summary, and be sure to include all names, dates, places, and relationships, and then exclude what was inherited. And so this is more the summary that I was looking for. Dated from Louisa County. Here it's getting the Virginia right again, even though it didn't actually extract it. Names his children. Very nice. Unnamed wife, referring to her as his loving wife. And yeah, document includes geographical references, which is nice. And then the witnesses. So I like this summary. It's I thought did a nice job for me. What about translating? And so I did these documents in English because that's my primary language. And so I thought, well, there are these models do pretty well on the common languages. So English, French, German, Spanish, Italian, they do pretty well on those because they were trained on lots of pieces of text in those common languages. They do a lot less well on like Swahili and stuff like that. And so another use would be to take that document that's in German or Spanish and ask it to not only transcribe it, but then to translate it. But here I did it the other way around. So I said, hey, maybe I don't speak English. So translate this document into Spanish for me. I like it. It did a good job based on my limited understanding of Spanish. It looks correct. The certeza, yeah. So then I can ask it questions like, who are Andrew's children? Please list each of their names. And this is what I get out of it. Again, everything is right, except this Robert really should be Peter, but otherwise it looks good. Okay, so lessons learned from doing this. I have tried different models. For me, Claude 3.5 Sonnet currently appears to be the best. Other people are saying that as well, that it's actually surpassed GPT-4o in various areas. But you could try other models as well. And also, I mean, these companies are coming up with better models all the time. GPT-5 is supposed to be getting here soon. I'm sure that Anthropic is working on a better model. I know Google is working really hard on trying to catch up. So just kind of stay abreast at least of those three companies. Microsoft has partnered currently, and Apple also with OpenAI. But my guess is that I know that both of them are working on their own models, and my guess eventually is that they'll have their own models out there. So yeah, try different models, try to keep up with the newest models, because they'll likely be the best. Try different prompts. Remember to be specific. Ask the LLM to reflect on its output and make corrections. Explain what you want, and then also the format that you want it in. Okay, trust but verify. As we saw, LLMs are amazing, but they still make mistakes. So don't trust the output of an LLM for important decisions without verifying its accuracy. So one thing that I think would work really well is ask the LLM to transcribe a document for you, and then look for the names, and then ask it to extract the names, dates, and places that it found in the document. And then just check those to make sure that those are right, because they're going to be, the most important part of the document. And that's probably the most cost-effective thing you can do right now, is have the LLM transcribe your documents, ask it to extract out the names, dates, and places, and then double check the names, dates, and places back in the original image to make sure that it got those right. Number 4 is be hopeful. I mean, what has this been? 3 years, 2 years maybe, and they're getting amazingly good. I believe that in the next few years, we'll see them performing as well as inexperienced genealogists. And then, like Don Snow said, I'm currently a BYU pathway missionary. I work with students in Nigeria right now. We meet every week over Zoom, and there's a real shortage of jobs in Nigeria, and a large number of wonderful members of the church in Nigeria who would love to transcribe your documents for you. And yeah, just the way that the exchange rate is, it costs very little to hire these people. So if you're interested, I know a number of people. I've gotten to where I used to have people do that kind of work by hiring them on Fiverr and Upwork, and now I just when I need work like that done, I just go straight to my students and say, hey, would you like a little bit of work? And they're always grateful for it. And so yeah, that's worked out very well.
Yeah, we have several comments on Facebook about how, they can hire one from BYU Pathways. So you'll just have that information.
Yeah, ask, I should put up my email address. Well, my email is really easy. It's Dallan, DALLAN, my first name, at gmail.com. So,
that's nice.
yeah, I was an early Gmail adopter, so I got to have my first name.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so if you're interested, let me know.
Okay. Hey, and then I do have a comment. We were talking about making a family tree diagram.
Mm-hmm.
So the person that asked that said, Claude will not generate an image of a family tree, but it can generate the code to make a diagram of a family tree using the text to diagram platform called Mermaid. So I don't know if
really
that's what he just said. Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I've used Mermaid in the past. That works really well. Cool.
Yeah.
That's nice to know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Tell them thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's helpful. Okay. All right.
I have one other question, Dallan. This is Gerhard.
Yes.
I saw earlier this week a report that Microsoft was resigning or departing from the OpenAI board. Something reference to competition scrutiny. Does that have any significance? It looks like Apple may be doing the same kind of a thing. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw that too. Microsoft is resigning their position from the board, and Apple that had an option to have a position on the board has declined. And the article that I read said that they were concerned about, what is it, anti-competitiveness or antitrust or whatever. And that's a pretty big concern. There are a lot of people right now that are saying these large tech companies maybe are getting a little bit too big, too much power, and so I get that, but I also think they are really, both Microsoft and Apple are actively developing their own models so that they don't have to be reliant on the OpenAI model.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's interesting.
Dallan, there are 2 or 3 other AI programs. Perplexity, have you used that one?
Yeah. So if you want to do web searches, perplexity.com is, or was it .com or .ai?
I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, Perplexity. It's my wife's new favorite search engine. It's incredible. It really does a nice job. There's another one called you.com, you.com, that also does a nice job. Not as nice as Perplexity, in my opinion. And then you can turn on at Google, if you go into their experimental settings, you can turn on their AI generated outputs, so that when you ask a search, it'll give you the search results, and but then a lot of times it'll give you an AI generated summary of those results at the top of the page. And so that's what I do. I don't know. Why don't I use Perplexity? I guess because I've just used Google for such a long time, and I think it's cool.
Yeah, right.
Kind of these generated outputs, but yeah.
There's somebody, and I've forgotten it. There's a link to it in one of my notes of somebody who's keeping track of AI applied to genealogy. I've forgotten what the link was, but he's trying to update things to say, yeah, this will work here and this will work there for genealogy stuff.
Yeah. Well, and there's a Facebook group.
Is there a Facebook group too on it?
Yeah, started by Blaine Bettinger. The big.
That sounds familiar. I think that's the guy.
Yeah. So the Facebook group has several hundred members on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, worth looking at.
Hey, Dallan, we do have a couple questions again on that pathways. Can you get someone that could transcribe Russian cursive?
No.
No. Okay.
That seems, yeah. I mean, I would think in order to do a good job of Russian cursive, well, okay. Yeah, but I don't know them. Okay, so in order to do a good job of Russian cursive, you'd have to probably know Russian. There are almost certainly pathway students, like in some of the former Soviet bloc countries that know Russian, but I don't know them, and I don't know how to connect with them.
Okay.
Fortunately. Yeah.
Do you know what languages usually they could translate from? Do you have an idea, or just, I mean, you're doing Nigeria, right? So
yeah, I only know I know Nigeria and I know South America. So Spanish and English.
okay.
Yeah.
Right. And then someone just posted, so that Facebook group is Genealogy and AI is the name of it. So if anybody's interested in that.
Good.
Genealogy and AI.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's like 7,000 members. So
Oh, wow. So it's really grown.
yeah. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thanks. All right.
Dallan, you were going to give us some instruction on Levenstein.
Yes. Yeah. So here are the 2 links. And we can post these slides at the end. I don't know if you want to, but okay. So the first link is Family Locket did an experiment reading handwritten documents. It's worth, if you're interested in this kind of thing, this is worth reading. They didn't try all 3 models. They just said, they read an article that said that Claude 3.5 Sonnet was the best, and so they just tried it with that, and it worked out well for them also. So I strongly recommend looking at this. And then the words that I used, the website I used for the transcription differences is countwordsfree.com/compare texts. And so let's see, if I do that, let's see here.
Gerhard, are those links going to be in the chat?
I can put them in the chat.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay,
we could
do that. Yeah. So this is that website. You just paste in one side. And hit compare. And it says, okay, there was 8 character differences. And so, you know, 1 HELLO space, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I guess maybe they're not counting the spaces. And they do so they're counting a substitution as 1. So they're doing 4 deletions, ELLO, delete those, and then substitute I for space, or space for I, so that's 5, and then substitute O for T, N for W, and E for O. That's 6, 7, 8. And so there you go. So okay, let me stop sharing here. Let me bring this back. Okay, and then let me get those links and I'll put them in the chat right now. Here's one.
See the first one.
Yeah. There's 2 of them there in the chat now.
And there's the second one. Yeah. The other one was from Maryland for the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Oh,
good.
We have people posting them over in Facebook as well.
Oh, good.
Good.
Gosh, Dallan, this has been wonderful.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
Really been helpful.
I hope so. Thank you. Any other questions?
I was going to tell you that we have people watching from all along the East Coast, north to south, as well as from the West Coast, as well as from Germany.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. That's nice. Well, I'll be in Germany in October.
Oh, God. And you just got back from Reykjavik and from Norway.
Yep. Yeah. Going to Germany. Doing some traveling before the mission. So.
Oh, gosh.
We have some on Facebook. This really say thank you. Great information. Really appreciated.
Okay.
It really was excellent.
Marilyn, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to comment. I know I have been using the family searches, search of documents with AI, hunting for family names. And so this is kind of deja vu to see yours, because what happens is I'll have a document and they'll get 10 transcriptions of the family name wrong, but then they'll get 1 right. And what that does is then gives me a document that I didn't know exist in a county I didn't know the family was in, and it opens a door. And so sometimes, even though the accuracy is not as high as we want it to be, it opens doors. And remember, with indexes, that's one of the reasons we want things indexed, is because we can't look at everything. And so that's why I'm so grateful for the time savingness of AI.
Yeah. Okay, so now that you brought that up,
Okay.
one trick on the family search, full text search,
Right.
it's a good idea to put in your names in the name fields there.
Right.
But yeah, they're missing a lot of names,
They're
and they're
missing a
getting
lot,
wrong.
but also put in the mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that you can do though is put your name in the keywords section.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, a name will be in the document, it'll be transcribed correctly, but they just don't pick it up. They haven't extracted it as a name. And so it doesn't get searched for when you're searching for the names. So if you put it in keywords, you're going to get a lot more matches, and that works better unless your name is like Snow.
Yeah, right.
Fallen, yeah, fallen off the tree and fallen rain, and yeah, but yeah, yes, thank you very much for that. And also, as we were doing that, they would keep reminding me that you have to learn to think in computer language. And so we need to take the time to train ourselves to talk to AI, not as a person, but as it is, artificial intelligence. And so it's a skill. It's a new skill we as genealogists need to learn.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. And thank you. Thank you.
I think of correcting these prompts as the scientific method. You try stuff, and if it doesn't work, you modify the experiment. You try it a little bit different, and you keep doing it until you get what you want.
Yeah, this is the interesting thing, I think, about this AI and large language models lately. I went to school, we called it computer science, but was it science really? Because we never really did experiments. We never formed hypotheses to see and then did an experiment to verify our hypothesis. I would say it's really what we did was more computer engineering or computer guild or whatever. But
Yeah.
now we finally have something that we've been able to develop that we really do not understand. And yeah, so we have to do these experiments now for the first time.
Wonderful. Okay, are there any other questions or any comments anybody has before we sign off for this part?
Go ahead, Don.
All right. Wonderful, Dallan. We really appreciate your time and preparation, and it's been really helpful to us, and you've given us lots of good food for thought. Now, those of you who are on Zoom, if you'll just stay on Zoom, we'll be having our class, which will start in maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, and it will be on a discussion, an open discussion. If you have comments or questions related to this or anything else related to family history and technology, or frustrations, things that have happened that you want to let us know about, anyway, there'll be several people on that will maybe be able to answer your questions. So if you're on Zoom, just to stay on.
Hey, Don. Hey, Don, sorry to interrupt. We just had one other question on Facebook I just saw. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so since we're on Facebook Live, can Meta AI do the same function shown today?
That I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how well Meta does at handwriting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question though.
Just wanted to
Okay, so
practice.
all right. If you're on Zoom, stay on. If you're on Facebook, you'll have to drop off now and then sign back on again to get into our class. But the class will start in about another probably 5 or 6 minutes, and it'll be an open discussion, so you can ask questions or make comments and so on. Thanks so much, Dallan. We really appreciate it. Good luck
Hey, Don,
with
sorry.
with your beads and where you're headed to the Philippines. That's wonderful.
Hey, Don, before we close, there is one more question. Sorry.
Oh gosh.
All right. Have you compared a transcription by Claude or Chat GPT with the Family Search Labs transcription?
I have not. Other people
Okay.
have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Claude wins. So
Really? Yeah.
Claude's the one. Huh? Good. Yeah,
All
that's
right.
very
Sorry.
helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks. We'll sign off for the main presentation now then, and we'll start the class in another few minutes.
Thanks, Dallan. That was great.
Thanks. Okay.